How would you describe yourself on the pitch?
Oh, this is a long one from halfway. My goodness, it's high and it is handsome. George Ford.
I grew up in a place called Sadworth near Oldham, which is obviously Greater Manchester. Very much a rugby league area, rugby league background, but obviously with the rugby league clubs around there, that's where I played my amateur stuff, but went to rugby union school just about 20 minutes away from where I grew up. Yeah, it's in the rural part of Oldham, lots of hills, lots of greenery, and nice little villages with 2 or 3 rugby clubs in and around the area. Yeah, I always remember going to the local club, which didn't have an amateur team at the time, but just going down there and kicking a ball around with my brothers to start with and a few of our mates, and then from that more and more of our mates came, and we created the first junior team at our local club, which there's still the junior teams now at every age level, which is quite a cool story really, and that's how it started, for the love of the game, going down there and kicking a ball around.
A change at half-back, Lee Dixon, and George Ford comes on, the youngster for his first cap.
I probably first started playing rugby union when I went to secondary school, a place called Rishworth, which was about 20 minutes away. And I was playing both codes for a period of time. Usually play rugby union on a Saturday and then rugby league on a Sunday, because you can do that when you're a kid. And then I got to like 15, 16, I probably had to decide either way which way to go. Very nearly stayed in rugby league, but I always thought in the future I'd love to give rugby union a real proper go. And the thing that swung it in the end was that if I wanted to do that, I need to go and learn the game as much as possible from a young age. So that's when I moved to Leicester.
A lot of changes made in his side, but to Cochrane, one man he hasn't changed. George Ford out at half.
I grew up watching my dad play professionally, which I was very lucky to do. He then went into coaching, so me and my brothers were always around sort of that environment really, and we were very privileged to get a bit of an inside view of them environments and understand sort of what goes on to be a good player and to be a good team. So it came naturally in terms of that really. We were never pushed, me and my brothers. It was always just because we loved doing it. We loved being in and around, being with my dad and going to the coaching sessions he was coaching in, the games at weekend, and then we obviously went to our local clubs and played, which was what we loved doing. I grew up watching St Helens Rugby League, and Paul Sculthorpe was the captain at the time. He lived next door to us, literally next door, and the amount of times he'd come out on the street and start kicking a ball around and throwing a ball around with me and my brothers was amazing really. You'd see him come back from training. He's obviously been training at St Helens. You see him come back, he'd get out of his car and straight over to us to play with us for a bit. So again, to have like a bit of an idol that you watched on TV and played for the team you supported, living next door and doing that was a massive influence on me.
Having George as a neighbour was always good fun. You know, as I say, he was always out on the front. You know, it was always something. Obviously, my background was rugby as well. I was a full-time professional. I knew the family as well. I'd played with George's dad, Mick, who was actually a hero of mine. You know, growing up as an Oldham boy, and then later playing with Mick. So I knew George and knew the family. So we used to spend a lot of time on the front. We were lucky we lived in a cul-de-sac, so there was never any cars coming past. So all we ever did was play sport on the street, and you know, George used to come and knock for me, you know, see if we were playing outside. So yeah, it was always good fun, and you know, I think you know what you like to see of kids, you know, growing up playing sport, being active, and he was certainly that.
Robshaw and Ford straight through. George Ford has the try.
It was very early on that George was one to watch out for. Super competitive and talented as well, just a natural, you know, he always had a ball in his hands or at his feet, but he was always willing to learn, always willing to, you know, to listen. He always used to ask me questions, you know, as did his dad on what we were doing at Saints, and always looking to improve. And he'd be out on the front, you know, kicking balls off kicking tees, you know, making makeshift, you know, goal posts, and he used to spend a lot of time actually going down to, we had a local pitch down in Saddleworth, Churchill playing field, where I know he'd go down and practice his goal kicking as well. So, you know, it's no surprise to see George as he is today and the level that he's got to, because he was, from a very early age, he was always willing to put that work in and practice.
Realigning his backs. Oh, there's another one! It's another one! It's a third! George Ford drop goal! And all of a sudden it feels like 2003.
Yeah, so Andy Thomas, he was my sports teacher / rugby teacher at Rishworth School when I first started playing rugby union, and the amazing thing they did as a school and him as an individual was when it got to maybe like GCSEs and A level, they allowed me to prioritise my rugby as well as doing the education, but they sort of reshuffled my programme and my schedule around at school to give me the best opportunity to do all my training and go to everything I need to go to in terms of rugby stuff, because I was at Leicester at the time, so I was to and from Leicester going back to school, but they were amazing in supporting me in that and thinking outside the box a little bit really, to give me the best opportunity to give rugby a crack.
Was there any other challenges you faced when you first moved to Leicester at age 16?
Yeah, it was a big step, obviously moving home and going living in Leicester at the time. The trickiest thing was probably the balancing the still studying and rugby side of things, because we were pretty much full time at Leicester, and then it was finding time to do all my school work, and I'd go back every 2 weeks, spend a day at school and then speak to all the teachers. They'd send me off with a lot more work and then go back to Leicester and do it all, and it was like that for a period of time. But the other thing was maybe like going into like a first team environment at such a young age. Like, it was pretty daunting at the time. Some of the personalities and characters around at Leicester who had been hugely successful up until that period was a little bit daunting at the time. But I suppose you have two choices: you either jump right in or you're a little bit tentative with it, and I made the choice to jump right in and give it my best shot.
Hutchinson drops out from the goal line. Here's Ford, who's been performing all sorts of miracles, and now he's having a stab at the drop goal from 40 metres out. And everything he touches is turning to gold.
Have a word with yourself.
What a drop goal that is. What a decision it is. It's absolutely the right decision. Look at this.
So those early experiences that you've just mentioned, how do you think they've moulded you into the person you are today?
It definitely made me mature and grow up a lot quicker. You're living by yourself, you're around senior international experienced players, and you've got to step up, and there's no other choice really. So that's what it did. It stood me in good stead in terms of that. Being in a position I'm in as well, to be vocal, to sort of tell guys who are a lot older and more experienced than me where to go and what to do. Definitely put me in good stead for, especially on the field and off it, the leadership side of things that hopefully I bring now.
How would you describe yourself on the pitch?
I'd like to say I'm pretty calm most of the time. I like to try and think clearly and understand why the game is like it is at the time and what we need to do next as a team and as an individual. But also there's a bit of a sense of urgency in and around that as well. So you need to think clearly to know what you're doing, but you need the urgency to then action it. So it's always a bit of a fine balance in terms of going from one to the other in terms of that, sort of pulling yourself out of the game to understand what's going on, but being in it as well. So I try to get that balance right as much as possible.
What advice would you give a young George, say, sat there now?
I give young George, the advice I give him is probably something I took with me actually was, and it still sticks with me now, is just no matter what's happening from the exterior, all you can do is be as consistent as possible from day to day. If you go and prepare and train as well as you can, treat people in the right way, respect people in the right way consistently, I think that puts you in really good stead to perform on the field, but also be a good person off it.